bringing out so much chocolate. Now there's no way I can possibly do anything more entertaining than chocolate. That's worse than following Shingy. So small business, how do we make that as delicious as chocolate? So I'm here to talk to you today about building an authentic voice for your brand. And I think what's interesting within this space is we've all seen a lot of changes. Everyone's talking about brands as publishers, and what does that mean? And so to share a little bit about my background and my journey, 2 years ago, I knew absolutely nothing about publishing and editorial and had to go from about 0 to 10 in a very short window. And the only way that I was able to educate myself and really understand this space was by, first of all, of course, looking at what other brands were doing, but in addition to that, really spending time with publishers and looking at them as a source of inspiration. So I went to the newsrooms and spent weeks and months and hours and days with all these people who were super generous with their time, particularly digital publishers like Business Insider, Mashable, et cetera, and tried to figure out how they do the things that they do so well. And I mean, it is unbelievable. We all are starting to build newsrooms and invest in content and publishing and think we know what we're doing in this space, and you go somewhere like Business Insider and you see the way their newsroom operates, and in seconds they're pushing something out and they have 50 people covering it and all of this amazing stuff, and you're like, okay, miles to go before we sleep. So I totally encourage all of you to take inspiration from publishers as well, and I'm going to give one example of something I think is pretty awesome in that space. So I think that we are actually in kind of a unique position because we are basically the future of publishing. And Katharine Graham would roll over in her grave if she heard me at the credit card company selling products and craft and other folks saying that. But I actually do think it's true. And I think we have a responsibility to our customers to do this right and to represent them and to come up with stuff that's exciting and engaging and represents their voice. And we have the resources and we have the customers and we have the ability to innovate in this space and create something that's great. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we've tackled the challenges open forum and examples of folks I think are doing this really well. Oh. There we go. So how many of you guys have seen the New York Times Snowfall piece? Okay, so you all need to be looking at examples of publishers more. So Snowfall is this unbelievable interactive piece created by the New York Times, which won a Pulitzer Prize. It was created like last October. And it is the story of some folks who survived an avalanche, and the multimedia elements are just totally groundbreaking and have completely shifted publishing on its head, and every single publisher out there is now trying to say, you know, how do we create a snowfall? What's our snowfall? It's almost become a verb. And so it got 3.5 million page views in the first 6 days of being out on the web. It took about a year to produce it. There was a large team behind it, and it won a Pulitzer Prize. So how many of you folks have worked on a campaign that got 3.5 million page views in 6 days? I don't see any hands. So I know we've talked about a couple of examples, like folks have brought up, you know, I think it was the Dove video, which got, I believe it was 55 million in total. To get 3.5 million page views in 6 days means something. So can we do this? And it's a good question, and publishers are asking it. I'm asking myself it. My boss is asking me. Can we do this? Can we create something that has this much impact? And an example that folks have talked about throughout the rest of the conference as well is the Red Bull Stratos project. So that got 50 million page views in 4 days. I'm just taking a moment of silence to appreciate that. That is some serious engagement, and it was done by a brand, and it was heavily branded. I mean, logos everywhere, et cetera, but I think they found a way to capture the minds and the imaginations of their customers and both, I mean, everybody else involved. And they did this as a brand, and they made an impact, and that's great content. So we can do this. I don't know if I can promise my boss I'm going to get to 50 million in 4 days, but I think we can do it. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about open forum and how we've structured ourselves and how we think about content. And I think having an authentic voice is one of the most important things you can do as a baseline to everything that you're doing. So a little bit on open forum. So the problem that we're trying to solve, and I've talked with a lot of people about this over drinks and at all hours of the weekend, but 60% of businesses approximately fail within 4 years of starting. So that's a huge problem, and particularly with Amex Open being the market share leader in the small business credit card space, If 60% of businesses are going out of business, we're losing customers, we're losing money, they're losing their revenue, and complete disaster. So a lot of what we try to do is try and find ways to make small businesses successful. So our overall mission is to power the success of small business owners. And so we've really done a lot of different things committed to focusing on that, Small Business Saturday, other initiatives that we have. Open Forum is one of the biggest ones that we have. And so we launched Open Forum back in 2007, prior to content marketing really becoming the well-known term that it is today. And we've had a lot of years to play in this space and kind of grow into ourselves and learn a lot. So to share a little bit about Open Forum, this is a bunch of stats. Essentially, we have lots and lots of folks reading our content, and we're producing a lot of it. So we publish 50 articles a week, which keeps me and my team extremely busy. And we also have a large number of page views. I think I'm not allowed to share exactly what they are, but lots of folks. And we've also launched a community where folks can engage with each other and ask each other questions in the small business space. And we've won a bunch of awards and been featured in all these publications. But what does all this mean, and how did we get here? So just to give you a quick visual in case you haven't seen Open Forum, that's an example, just a screenshot of our homepage. So we have all of these articles and different types of advice for small business owners. And then on the right, you'll see a question that somebody in our community posted, which had about 25 responses. I was one of the people that answered, but there were a lot of folks engaging. So overall, we produce all of this on a weekly basis. And I think the way that we've built the community that we've built, that we've gotten the type of recognition and acclaim and traction that we have, is by really holding true to some of these principles of brand authenticity. So I'm going to talk about each of them a little bit more. To run through them, this is sort of the money slide, I guess, if you will. So first of all, drop the hard sell. And I think brands are doing a great job of this. You know, Kraft and other folks who have spoken today, but it's not easy to do because we all want to talk about product features. And it's our natural inclination. We think what our products do is great and we want to talk about it to customers, but hard selling is not the way to go. And figuring out what your customer actually wants and giving it to them, it sounds simple, but very few people are able to do this really well. Be true to your strengths as a brand and know yourself. And don't outsource everything. So I know there's a lot of folks in different phases along the content creation process who maybe totally outsource everything, maybe are starting to bring some things in-house. I think it's important to have folks internally who can help guide the ship. And then lastly, content is not a campaign. Every time I hear the word campaign in the same sentence as content, I kind of like cringe a little bit. I think you need to think of it and invest in it as a longer term plan. So actually it was interesting. It was cool to see that some of what our guidelines for content mirrored a little bit of what was the Schwab folks were doing. So I think having very clear guidelines of what is okay and what is not okay on your site and in your social channels is critical. Everything that we produce is practical, actionable, should spark curiosity. We have it written by experts so that it's not written by a bunch of folks over at American Express. It's by people they know and they trust in the field and in business. We also try and make things really conversational. We've done a lot of analyses of what makes a great headline and what works for us, and then also avoiding excessive brand and product mentions. And something we've recently started to do, and actually this says description of branded content because it actually hasn't been launched yet. I think it's happening this week. We're starting to more clearly label the content that on our site that is promotional. So some of our stuff is completely, value add, and then some things we're starting to dabble in will be a little bit more branded. And for a publisher that does a good job of this, I think take a look at Forbes Brand Voice. When they partner with, folks like us and other brands, they clearly label what pieces are branded, and I think it's just really important to be transparent with your customer about that. So figuring out what your customer wants and giving it to them. This is not easy. This is something I spent a lot of time doing when I first started running editorial for Forum. So we looked at, we had research and, from our research group, et cetera, and then we thought about what fits for the American Express brand. But most of what we got was from data, both from Google search and also search driving to Forum, looking at analytics and tagging in our keywords and seeing what was hottest and most engaged with. Also looking across the editorial landscape within our category and seeing what other folks were covering. And so we totally shifted the topics that we're covering about a year and a half ago. And we had a lot of huge success metrics come out as a result of that. So I think data is a great place to start, and then match that up with your brand and what sings true to you. And an example of this is, so we were not really covering customer service on Open Forum. And if you see this article on the left, it's from many, many designs ago. Our articles look totally different now. It was published in 2010. And this article continues to get like 1,500 page views a day for the past 4 years, 3 years, however long. And I looked at this and I was like, why? Like, I don't understand. Like, what is it about this that makes people keep coming to this on a daily basis? And we found that there was a lot of interest from our customers and from others around the web on learning how to do customer service well as a small business. So we started covering it, increased coverage. We saw huge returns in terms of engagement. And I think it also was a great fit for American Express because we're known for customer service. So I think it let us be true to who we are and be a resource in a topic that folks were coming to us for advice on. Don't outsource everything. So this one's hard. I know how hard it is to get headcount. I've squeaked in a couple, but and some I've had to do through agencies, and everyone is trying to do what they can to stay alive in this space and publish everything that they can on a weekly basis. But I think you have to have the reins a little bit internally. I know our vice chairman writes all of his own tweets, and you can tell. I think when you give away ownership to basically everything, you do lose some of that. But that being said, none of us could survive without our agency partners. So I think some of it is just really creating a clear dialogue where they don't feel like they're presenting to you every time they talk to you, and you're actually being open and honest about what works. And it's okay if you try some things and they suck, because that happens frequently to us. And you have to create that environment where they feel comfortable. So also, content is not a campaign. So this is an important thing to note, because I think all of us are marketers and we think in these terms. This is a long-term investment that takes a long period of time. You have to be able to test things, move away from them, and I think having a regular cadence and flow comes from having this mindset that it is not a marketing campaign. And also, I think it's important to set clear benchmarks for what success is. So whether it's shares per page view or whatever it is that you deem to be important for your brand, have a range of success, and when things are not hitting within that range, change them. So we're constantly iterating and saying, okay, this topic is not performing, or this author's not working for us, and sort of trying to do this as real time as possible, which is not easy. So to close, I was going to talk about a couple examples of brands that I think do content really well. And the reason I'm starting out with Warby Parker is I know that not everybody has the resources that some bigger brands have. And I think that Warby Parker is a brand that, first of all, I love. I don't know, how many of you folks have Warby Parker glasses? Not that many. Not to do a sales pitch for Warby Parker, but they're $95 for the glasses and the frames, and they also donate a pair to charity every time you order one, so they're pretty awesome. And I think what they've really done is they've tapped into understanding their customer. I think they're a little bit of a younger, edgier demographic, and there's research showing that 60% of consumers under the age of 40 consult social media when making purchases, and also really care about causes. So giving back, and it's something that's important. And they've tapped into this, and similar to brands like Tom's and others, I think they've really harnessed it, and they express this through their content as well. And I don't know the details of what they spend, but I imagine it's nothing like what some of these bigger brands do. But what they do is some really kind of interesting grassroots content. So you'll see on the left there's a post just featuring one of their office employees and talking about her and her life, etc. Like, it's on Facebook, probably free to create, and is actually pretty interesting. Then they also do this thing called Class Trip, where they travel around the US and do pop-up shops in a school bus. So they literally drive a bus around the United States, and they create content about the experiences that they have within those local communities and push that through their blog and other channels. And then finally, they've done a really cool Artists in Residence program where sort of like the Andy Warhols who have become successful via, having like a creative space to be via hotels back in the day. They've fostered some of this by sponsoring artists and letting them be at the Standard Hotel for certain periods of time, and they also launched a store in that lobby. So anyways, I think the point is that you can be creative without spending, $1 $1 million, and I think they've done a great job. And I'm running out of time, but I look at GE. Look at what they're doing in this space. I think it's unbelievable. They have some of, no offense, GE, some of the unsexiest categories out there. I mean, they're talking about like wind turbines and trains and, I mean, the kind of stuff where how do you make that cool and interesting? And, you know, they have done incredible, incredible things. I don't have enough time to talk through all of them, but check out what GE is doing in the space. They inspire us a lot. And I think they take, they really know how to channel who they are and bring that into content. So, thank you.